Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zack Cherry, and with me as always...
Fuck me next to your dead mom, then. Eddie of Edward is Truth.
And today we're talking about You're Next, which was originally released September 10th, 2011 at TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival. But theatrically, it did not get released for another 2 years, which would have been August 23rd, 2013. So we are 10 years out from that. So another anniversary special. What do you know? How predictable.
Right?
Yeah. This has been... like, it had a very small, like, limited window release from what I remember. So I don't really know if it, like, picked up traction right away, or it wasn't until, like, it came out on, like, Blu-ray or streaming or whatever. But this has just become such a, like, a cult hit amongst the horror community. Like, it's pretty crazy. Like, this is, I mean, it's probably, like, between The Strangers and this, You're Next, of just, like, what is, like, the best home invasion movie. I mean, maybe there are Purge people out there too, but I mean, that's usually what it comes down to.
I mean, for me, I mean, these days, whenever I see any kind of, like, post about it, it always seems to be mentioned in the same breath as Ready or Not. Like, You're Next and Ready or Not have kind of become the Betty Davis and Joan Crawford of,
The Freddy
home
and
invasion
Krueger.
horror movies. Like, yeah, Freddy and Jason, or, you know, like, anything like that. But, which is, I think, unfortunate, because I saw it for the first time by word of mouth. John Carlos, my oldest friend, showed it to me on a movie weekend, I think, like, maybe 8 years ago. And, was so, I think I'd seen the poster, or at least the poster art somewhere, so it was always kind of on the periphery, but I never really knew anything about it. And
Which
like,
poster was it? Because there's
the one with the mask. Oh yeah, there's a few, but it was the one that is kind of like the default everywhere, like, which is the I believe the wolf mask.
Well, it's a fox.
Or the fox. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you.
there's
There you go.
because there were several, and the one that I remember, which is also the one that's on the cover of the vinyl album, which I have, it's the outline of the fox mask, but inside of it is sort of like a blueprint for the house. And there's just, like, all the rooms, and then you can see, like, the victims hiding and the killers stalking around, which was just, like, really
cool.
It was a very avant-garde poster. And I mean, I would have already seen it, because there was very little word of mouth about it. Like, it just sort of was just like, there's a horror movie coming out this weekend, and I'm like, all right, we're going. And I fucking loved it. And I think that, like, the thing that probably most people glom onto and just sort of take away from this is Erin, because she is fucking amazing. And like, rightly so. Like, she's, I mean, not to show our hand too soon, because we could debate later on, but she truly is, like, she's the MVP of this movie, and she's the thing that most people remember.
Right. We did our Final Girl ranking, and she was on the list of, what, like, 80 plus Final Girls.
I believe it was
86.
Yeah, and this was our Cherry Picker After Dark special, way back, was like last year. And she was one of 86.
She was pretty high. Oh, okay. She was pretty high.
She was definitely, I mean, top 10. You'll have to sign up to Patreon and watch that if you want to find out where everyone else did. But actually, that's a good segue, because I do want to welcome some new Patreon supporters. Ooh. So we have where are we here? 1 second. I've got it on my phone here, but I'm not always prepared. So new Patreon supporters, give it up for Chrissy Cutler and Bobby Hazelwood. Welcome aboard.
Yay.
Welcome aboard. If you would like to support the Cherry Picker or myself, as a YouTuber on Patreon, you can head over to Zack Sherry on Patreon. And with that, you'll get early access to all of our episodes, and you will get, depending on the tier, if you're Freddy Krueger or higher, access to the Cherry Picker After Dark, which is our monthly bonus episode. And that will be next week's episode, but we'll get to that later. And then I also wanted to thank Boy Cried Wolf, who is our editor. Yay. So thank you very much to him as well. But yeah, Erin, she's definitely. I mean, it'll be interesting. I'd like to hear people, like if you're on the YouTube or whatever, comment and just let us know, like, your top 10 final girls. Like, does Erin show up on here? Because I mean, watching the movie, because I've seen it so many times, but obviously I watched it this morning to prepare for this. And she's a very capable final girl in that she is just like... Yeah. She knows what to do. Like, she knows how to survive. That's, you know, kind of like part of her little backstory that we hear. But she's not very, like, socially, like, aware. Like, that was, like, she's almost, like, she's too trusting of people that she's not kind of, like, able to see through the bullshit. And that's kind of
her
like...
bullshit detector is not, like, on point.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's her fatal... Like, if she had a fatal flaw. She's, like... She was fine. She did okay. Like, if the people in this movie were more competent and more manipulative, or, like, better at being manipulative, like, she might have had some trouble. And we'll get into that, too. But it's just, like, in terms of everything else, she's just, like... Like, the moment in particular when she's got her back... turned to Z, and he's about to whack her on the head with the board with the nails in it, which is probably my favorite moment in the thing. And she turns around, she's like, "Oh, can you hand me that?" Or she's like, "Do you need help with that?" Or whatever she says. And Z just like quickly like puts it behind her back, and she's like, "No, I'm good." So yeah, Erin, like she can definitely handle herself against. I have no doubt that like Freddy Krueger or Jason Voorhees, like we saw the way she was fashioning those. The similar Nancy Thompson traps, but I mean, I don't know if it was Scream, like if she was like in a group of people, and one or more of them were Ghostface. I don't think, you know, it's like Scream is the wrong franchise for Erin, but she's good here.
I mean, unless she's going toe to toe with Ghostface, and then she can, because Ghostface is notoriously clumsy, kind of like, you know, with few exceptions. Yeah. So if she can trip up Ghostface and injure, because Ghostface is also, even though, you know, allegedly superhuman, the killer is, Ghostface is always mortal. So if she can handle Ghostface toe to toe, so this is like the Freddy versus Jason like arguments about like where their strengths are and where their weaknesses are. So if Erin were to go toe to toe with a Ghostface, I feel like if she could just kind of like implement her techniques, like one thing that I really loved watching her with that one, I forget which one, was it the tiger face?
Well, she killed all three of them, so it's just...
but the first one. The first one
was
was
Tiger
right?
Mask,
Okay. And I loved that the first thing I think she went for was the balls. Yeah. To just kind of like disorient him and get him vulnerable. So because you know, the immediately like reflexively you're just going to go, and lock up. You can't attack if you are, you know, like sitting there reeling from, you know, having your groin just kicked. And then the next thing she went for was the knee to bring him down to a lower level, and then she just went ape shit on his skull. And I was just like, this is like, these tactics are really well planned and ingrained in her, and I really like that. And so if you could do that with Ghostface, you're golden.
Absolutely. I think like I would say like physically toe to toe, she would be fine, but it's more just like the mental, the just game of the more sort of just like the cat and mouse of just like the ghost face manipulation and just like the people and who do you trust and things like that. Because I think like Erin is just like, she's just too trusting of everyone. And
well, also, I mean, considering the environment that she's in, like she's someone who seems to be really desperately like desiring a sense of belonging to a family. The scene that she has with Barbara Crampton in the kitchen, where all she wants to do is be of service and help and everything like that, and she's just kind of like, oh no, I've got this, and you can just see the disappointment and the, you know, like the what is it the kids say these days? Oh, the low key heartbreak in her eyes. I mean, know, like.
Did you get a sense of just some sort of maybe like classism in this movie? Like it's not like as present as like Ready or Not. Because there's a lot of correlations, you know. I know you already brought it up, but there are a lot of, like, it's a fair comparison, this movie and Ready or Not. But I just like I noticed, especially with, and I don't. That's the thing, like I don't know, but just like the mom's behavior to like the different kids' significant others was always so different and weird. Like obviously, I forget is it Katie, the wife of. Not Dexter. I don't know what else to call him. Like the one that like he looks so much like
Kelly? Is it Kelly?
Is it Kelly? Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
So like obviously she's already part of the family. But it's just like the way that she like they're obviously like kind of like, well, we don't really know Erin. It's just like maybe there's this weird friction because like she was a student of Crispin's. But then even when Barbara Crampton or Aubrey meets
right
is it Tariq, who's played by Ty West?
Yeah.
It might be his acting. But it's just like there's this exchange. It's just like really weird. He's just like, "Hi, I'm Tariq," and it's always it feels very like business minded, like, or just like, you know, it's like it was almost like a transaction. It's just like, yes, I'm here and I'm a filmmaker and yada yada yada. Like it was weird. But then,
well, the whole go ahead. Well,
I was gonna say it, but then that immediately goes to Z, and Z is just like, you know, she takes a drag of her cigarette and she's like, yeah, right. But they're like, hi, you must be Z. Like, you know, like, we're so happy to meet you. And it's just like, this is the person you're so happy to meet, like this weirdo. So it's really hard to like to gauge like what the dynamics are in this family. Like clearly something is fucked up.
Oh yeah, I kind of welcome that, because, you know, I believe that dysfunctional family is kind of like an oxymoron, like, or is it an oxymoron or redundant, I guess, is rather what I'm saying, because oxymoron isn't that negating, like contradicting the thing
it's a contradictory statement.
So not a contradictory statement. I think it's redundant calling someone's family a dysfunctional family. I think every family has its own particular brand of dysfunction. And with this one, a real strong sense that I got just observing, and I'm really glad that we get to spend the time that we do with them, kind of like eavesdropping on, you know, select moments with the family, because we get to see that there's a lot of, but it all feels so incredibly natural, like a lot of dynamics that depend on history, and it's like you're a guest just kind of getting the vibe of what the chemistry is. Just like, oh, they don't get along, obviously. Like, obviously this guy, what's his name, the Crispian, it's spelled Crispian for some reason.
Yeah, I noticed Crispin, that too. Right? It's Crispin, but it's like Crispian.
Yeah, but
Crispian.
But Crispin, like, obviously, like, he doesn't get along with Drake, and doesn't really seem to get along with anyone in his family, which, you know, obviously we see exactly like how pronounced and how,
I mean, if you're okay with like having them all murdered, then, you know, you probably don't get along with them.
There's going to be some issues.
Yeah.
But even just like the way he doesn't seem to feel listened to, or doesn't seem to feel recognized or valued by his father when they're all outside. Like,
it definitely has like a middle child syndrome to it, because I would assume they never really go into anything. But like Drake, thank you for reminding me of his name. I still want to call him not Dexter. He feels like the oldest one. Like, he's kind of like the shit disturber. I would say Crispin is the middle one. Is it Amy? the daughter, like, she must be
Yes.
the youngest one, because she's the one that they're just, like, she just seems like, you know, they doted on her.
Everybody
a
seems
bit
to kind of
much, and then
right.
Felix is just like the weird one, you know. He's like, it's just like weird Uncle Felix or whatever. Like, they just know that he's like different, and they just
like
accept
he
him.
and Crispin seem to share that middle child syndrome with each other, and maybe that's why they were in cahoots. Which, you know, spoilers.
Maybe.
If you haven't seen the movie, watch the movie, because what I started
Yeah.
to say is I went in blind the first time I saw it, and I was so glad that I did, because I had no idea what it was going to be. I knew someone was in the house from the get-go when the ball
Right.
first started rolling, and then that door starts to creak open and everything like that. I was like, oh, someone's in the house, but who and why and how is this going to manifest? And then it's not until they're all sitting around the table and that first arrow gets shot through the window that you
Yeah.
realize, oh, that's what this movie is. If you're seeing it for
Well,
the
I
first
mean,
time.
I
and if you
saw
haven't
the
heard
promotional material.
Oh, okay. And if you or if you haven't seen the endless kind of like comparisons to, you know, Ready or
Yeah.
Not or anything like
Do
that prior, which is
you
unfortunate.
have a premise?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get that out of the way. It's like,
What
it's like a
things?
chore at
What's-
this point. Well, obviously you're
Should
going
I
to do it in
try- should I-
Erin's. Do you want to attempt
Yeah,
an
okay, I'll do that.
Australian? Yeah.
I'll try. I'll attempt Australian. We'll see how far I get. I'm gonna do the whole thing, but yeah. Okay, here we go. When a gang of masked, axe-wielding murderers descend upon the Davison family reunion, the hapless victims seem trapped. I'm becoming New Zealand. I'm much more New Zealand, but I'll just keep going. That is until an unlikely guest of the family proves to be the most talented killer of all. Place your bets as to who shall be the victor, and whose destiny will align with the portentous blood scroll. You're next.
It's so jarring. what
It's
did she say about
I
her?
lost-
They don't like her because her voice is so jarring. Her accent is so jarring.
I lost all sense of what I was reading. My reading comprehension went out the window. I don't know what the hell I meant. I hope you got it. Boy Cried Wolf will put some clips and maybe it'll make some sense. Anyway, there you go.
Yeah, edit
Huh?
down what you need to.
But okay, so this movie. I'm glad that you brought up the Nancy Thompson of it all, because I actually noticed quite a few allusions or nods to famous Final Girls that predate Erin, and I mean like classic Final Girls, and Nancy was one of them. That was when, because she was really, really good at, like, you know, these quote unquote booby traps, like Heather Langenkamp's character was in Nightmare on Elm Street. But I also got a nod to Adrienne King in the first Friday the 13th when she's, I believe she's in a pantry or a closet. I can't remember, but or maybe it's a closet, but she's behind a door. Mm-hmm. And it echoed that shot from Friday the 13th when Adrienne King is in the pantry hiding from Pamela Voorhees. And you see the knob turn, but with Erin, you see the light through the keyhole. Mm-hmm. And like something about that shot echoed that for me. There was also a moment when she actually did get into a closet, and I think it's before does she stab it? Oh, see, now it's all like getting fuzzy to me because so much violence.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's a lot. There's the moment where she jumps out the window, Sally Hardesty.
That was the other one, Marilyn Burns.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's a lot, and it never feels derivative. Like I don't look at that and just be like, oh, they're copying Nightmare on Elm Street, or they're copying this. It just kind of like, it's like, yes, queen, like, get it, like, go jump out that fucking window. And
I mean, I didn't even get the references until this may be my 6th or 7th time seeing the movie, and this is the first time I ever articulated it to myself. That's what I'm looking at.
She pulls that fucking, like, I don't even know how big that shard of glass was. Like, it just, like, every time I've seen this movie, it gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that I'm sitting there again, I love the immersive quality of it. Like the fact that it's almost like a Hitchcockian trick to try and get us in on her side. We're already on her side, but to put us even more inside her experience, so she resonates more with us because as she is pulling the glass out, I think every time I'm wincing, but also coaching her, like, do it quickly, just do it as fast as you can, do it as fast as you can. Then I always forget how long it is. Like, that is a shard of glass,
and it's wide.
And I'm just like, that's why you can't just go, it's out, because the fact that she gets it out as quickly as she does, I commend her. But
by the way, I've decided Erin Carson is her last name, I believe. Aries.
Okay.
So for all the Aries out there,
okay. As long
Edward's just like, well, she's obviously a Virgo, but
no, I'm not like that. Although,
just like she's so like she's just so go, like just very impulsive, and it's just like she probably should have like dressed that wound, like I think she does later on, but she's just, I've got no time for chill. I got no time to do that. And that's, I mean, it worked for her. It worked in that situation, so good for her. But it's funny that you mentioned Friday the 13th, because I was getting kind of an homage to another character from the 1980 Friday the 13th with her, and that is Annie, the cook, who's the first present day murder, because the movie. After the opening scene, like the professor and his like whatever she is, new girlfriend, even though she didn't seem to be like too happy with the role. Or, they were like they could have been like the proxy to the counselors who were murdered in 57 or 58, whatever year it was.
That's true.
And then the movie starts, because we really start from like the parents. They're the ones that we first follow, and then Erin and Crispian, I'm just gonna keep calling him Crispian for the whole thing, because they arrive, and you talked about that scene where she wants to be of service. She's asking if she can help, and the mom's just like, well, actually, can you go to the neighbors and get some milk? And she's like, okay, and she says the infamous line, "I'll be right back." Which, wrong movie, so it doesn't matter, because that's not one of the rules here. But she goes outside, and she's kind of like, I'm just going to go down to the neighbors. And at that moment, because I think the first time I saw this movie, I didn't know that she was the lead, because she wasn't really, like, presented as one yet. Like, because that's the thing with, like, Friday the 13th, Annie was kind of shown to be like, oh, we're following her. We're doing this, because it's like she's heading down to the house where we know people have been killed. We don't know if they're still there hiding out, and it only lasts up until that point in the movie, because after that we go into, like, day turns into night and we're at the dinner. But there was a part of me that was just kind of like, oh, she's next. It's like, like, you're next. Like it was gonna be her. So she was kind of just this likable character that we were introduced to at first, and that's the vibe that I got the first time I saw it. And even watching it again now and just seeing it and just being like, oh, she's giving Annie vibes.
Wow. Huh. I mean, I can see that when you say it. I don't think I experienced that myself, because I think the fact that she had kind of like the most discomfort as the outsider and seemed to be kind of like the most like out of her element, regardless of what tax bracket the family happens to be in. I think it's more of an issue in Ready or Not than it is here, because I think that family is, and we'll go into that whenever we cover that movie, but largely old money, and also everything
cover it. That was our 4th episode.
We already did it?
Yeah.
I completely forgot. Okay, never mind. Then I'll talk about it as much as I want. The level of wealth, and even just like the dramatic heights that family reaches, all seems so much more grandiose and theatrical and in your face and almost cartoonish at times, to the point where I feel like there's more laughs in that movie than there are in this one. Not that I don't laugh in this one, but I feel like the immediacy and the world and everything that as it proceeds in that world, it all feels much closer to me. I feel like I don't live in a house like this family does, the Davison family, but I've been in houses like that, and I've known people who live in houses like that, and and I've known some are cool, some, you know, they're very much of that life, but it's not completely unimaginable. It feels more like a kind of common, for lack of a better term, a commonwealth. But so anyway, but I feel like because of Erin's relative discomfort in that atmosphere, I mean, just meaning she's not entirely herself, you know, like entirely her authentic self at all times, just trying to be of service and just trying to be agreeable and just trying to, you know, smile and just and also like a bit of an outsider with her observations, like what was it when when Barbara Crampton turns to the family, Aubrey turns to the family, and she just kind of tells them how glad she is that they're all there, and she kind of wells up, and
that's it, and like, she walks away.
So yeah, and she's just like, and she is so cute, and or with an Australian accent that I'm not going to attempt again.
Well, just in terms of like the comedy of Ready or Not, because I mean, like that's satire, like full on, like that's it's intentional, and I find here like the comedy works really well. I almost like appreciate the comedy in this more because it just comes out of like the most like strangest ironic situations, and they always get a laugh because it's like they're not trying to be funny, and they were even talking about this in the featurette on the Blu-ray. They're not trying to be funny, but it's just like it just worked. It just flowed so well, and I mean. It's the same. It's, you know, the same thing that we talked about with Camp. You know, like when it's intentional, it doesn't, you know, read the same way. And I think Ready or Not is a great movie. We talked about that. I think I might enjoy this one more, and it might come down to. I just think it's more accessible. Like it's an easier watch. Like you don't have to really turn on your brain to kind of like process a lot of the satirical themes and ideas that are in Ready or Not, whereas here it's just like it's pretty straightforward. It's a home invasion. There's a few twists, and you have your final girl who's just like goes to town on them, and it's easy. It's entertaining. Is it a perfect movie? No. There's I wouldn't even say that it has flaws. I mean, maybe like barely any, but it's not the kind of movie that needs to be a perfect movie. It's just like a popcorn movie. It's entertaining, and I that's what I love about it. And I feel like this is something that I could watch over and over again and probably not get sick of it. Whereas like Ready or Not, I probably won't get sick of it, but I need to watch it sparingly.
That is so interesting because in a way, the opposite is true for me. I was thinking about it while I was watching this movie because, like I said, this is about the 6th or 7th time that I've seen it. Yeah. And I think the only reason I've seen You're Next as much as I have is because I know that I had to watch it a couple times I thought we had, leave it to me to not remember what we've done and what we haven't done. Yeah. I thought we had actually put together an episode of Fright Club back in the day. That was the last one that we worked on. That's where we kind of drew the line and said, "This is too much work. Let's not do this anymore."
Well, there was other factors why we had to.
Of course,
that video never came to fruition. It was supposed to.
But I thought it had. I looked for it to watch it to prep for this just to see what did we say in the comparisons. I wonder.
What was the criteria? Because I know that there was the kills. That was one category. Characters. I think it was just like overall production value was one of them.
Yeah, something like the where we incorporated kind of the filmmaking and the production design and all those kinds of elements. The score, things like that.
Story would have been one of them too. You already said characters.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what the fifth one was. It might have been like lasting appeal. I don't remember. It's been so long since we did
I think so. Yeah.
But I think like there's definitely like just based on those that set of criteria, I think it's still like evenly balanced because I would say that the production quality of Ready or Not is like far superior to this. Like they really went
broader.
Yeah,
it's a broader film.
They had more of a budget to work with for sure on that one, but it's just there's an opulence to the wealth of this family, and even though like maybe the Davisons, is that their name? Maybe if they're even not as wealthy as the Lidomises, it doesn't really like come across really anywhere other than like the dysfunctionality, which could be any family, and sort of like the immediate environment of just like, oh, this is like a pretty nice house in the countryside.
Right, but I think because of that. Sorry,
well, no, I'm just jumping off of like where the different films succeed, where the others not necessarily don't succeed, but you know where they would be better. I would say the kills are better in this because most of the kills in Ready or Not are just kind of like saved for the end, and it's just like the same, like the big blueberry explosion. So there's definitely I feel like You're Next succeeds in that category.
Ready or Not definitely feels more like a farce to me also, just because I think they lean into the comedy of the kills when they occur a lot more often than and even just the violence in and of itself than Your Next does. Like I said, like I think with the reason why I think I feel kind of opposite in a way to you is just the way I view it, because I realized I'd seen Ready or Not a lot more than I've seen this film. But I think the reason is I feel like Your Next is something that when I want to see it, I actually turn to it for the filmmaking of it. Like, I like the fact that there seems to be less budget, so more room to kind of like invent things to hold our interest, story-wise, pacing-wise, action-wise. This movie never really like lets me go. I think it definitely qualifies as a popcorn movie, but because I get so immersed in it, because I get so emotionally caught up in it, it actually does grate a little. Like it's wonderful, but it can be hard. Like I was kind of dragging my feet screening it because I was like, oh, it's kind of intense. Like, I know it's good. Like, that's the thing. It is unquestionably good. But I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of level of intensity, but I have to because, you know, we're doing this pod. So I watched it, and gratefully I kind of rediscovered what I loved so much about it. I was like, oh yeah, I completely forgot about the opening sequence. I forgot that it opens on their neighbors, that professor with, you know, his lover, and the way You're Next is scrolling, and I was just like, oh, I don't remember about as much of this as I think I do. Okay, it's almost kind of like watching it all over again. And then I start hitting the points that I remember, and that was like a warm hug. But
and
then,
even like
but
that
then after
opening
it was over,
scene,
I was really grateful.
Yeah, even that opening scene, like, it's pretty basic. But I love the way that it is kind of like contextualized later when you just kind of find out just really what's been going on and why it was integral that they had to kill the neighbors just to make it, you know, seem random in that way. I would say, like, in terms of characters, though, like, this is where it's kind of split, because I think that Ready or Not, the family in that movie is definitely, like, they're the best part of that movie. And like just immensely entertaining. Like, every single one of them just delivers on the comedy. And I think the family in this one, like, they're all doing really well with what they're doing, but some of them are like, you know, not really featured all that much. We don't really get to know them. So I would say that like the family in Ready or Not definitely has the edge, but Grace, Samara Weaving, she's also fantastic in the movie, but I feel like there's a lot missing from her character. I feel that there's just especially just the way that she just keeps fucking up. She keeps like getting kidnapped, and it gets to a point, like especially towards the end of the movie, where just like, oh, like, you know, how many times are you gonna fuck up at this? That it's, and she's interesting, that like, you know, and I love her as a character, but I think Erin far exceeds just in character comparatively to her, because like you said, we do get that like the kind of the same sense that we do with Grace, of just like the needing to belong somewhere, and sort of like the family, and I feel like it's done so much more efficiently with You're Next than it is in Ready or Not, and that's not to the fault of Ready or Not, because that's part of the story in a very major way in the plot. But I still think that, you know, it's just, even if like I like the family and Ready or Not better, and Erin better here, that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't like the other ones, and it doesn't necessarily mean that
Of course.
Erin facing off against the Ladomises would have been a better movie either. Like each of these groups of characters is well suited to who they're with.
Well, because Grace feels like kind of an every person, like she's us. Whereas I watch Erin and I feel like if from the opening till the crucial moment in you know, when they're all fighting around the table, I just kind of feel like she's someone who I care about, who I want to see, you know, who I want to take care of, who I want to see taken care of. And then once she starts taking care of everybody else to the best of her ability, controlling the situation and trying to like get people to calm down and, you know, focusing on like what to do and what not to do, I'm realizing you're someone I want in my lifeboat. And that is not an every person. That is a very specific, you know, particular type of person. Which, so I feel like their roles, you know, even though they occupy similar roles within the structure of the dysfunctional family and the outsider, they also couldn't be more dissimilar. And if you look at it from certain angles.
And it's just funny because like aesthetically, I guess, or just like not even aesthetically, but just in terms of who each character is, they kind of have a counterpart in the other movie. Because you could say, yes, Erin and Grace, the mom in Ready or Not, I forgot her name, but the one played by Andy McDowell.
Andy McDowell.
It's like, okay, then we have Barbara Crampton, the Henry Czerny. And I don't know the actor's name in this. I forgot to look up. But then like Adam Brody would be like the older, not Dexter brother. You've got Crispian,
Drake,
who is Crispian is like was it Alex the husband, the groom,
sure,
as it were. And then
I don't remember his name,
the daughter in that movie, or brown-haired niece, as she's called by the aunt. That's the only thing that was missing. We didn't have like the crazy old aunt in Your Next.
That
just like scowling.
That's another one of the things that kind of puts the family over the edge as far
absolutely.
as like cartoonish. And I love her in Ready or Not, but she does not have a place in Your Next. She would have stuck out like a sore thumb in this movie. But but that was another thing that I was really, really grateful for, was just like the accessible feeling atmosphere. So I could just kind of focus on the situation as opposed to the production designer or anything like that. Like, okay, it's established that they're wealthy, and you know, the house is so big that things can happen at one end of it that you don't even hear. So you know, there's some acreage going on here, but the fact that it like grips me and doesn't let go, and the fact that even I had forgotten, because it's not a heavily scored film, but when the score creeps in, especially around maybe about 2/3 of the way in to the movie, it starts with this wonderful, I don't know if it comes in any earlier than this because I didn't notice it, but it starts with this wonderful kind of synth Carpenter-esque, almost Stranger Things theme song sounding. I think Stranger Things ripped this composer off, but unless it's the same composer. I didn't even look that up, but this composer, oh my god, there are 4 people credited: Mads Heltberg, Jasper Lee, Kyle McKinnon, and Adam Wingard. Wow.
The director, yeah.
I don't know who I don't know who worked on what. Okay.
In the featurette they said that specifically that is the first time it shows up when you hear it in the movie, and it was intentional of them to kind of like have it introduced then and kind of just like ramp it up as we get into the climax. But yeah, like the score definitely it is very like understated for the first 2/3. Like it's effective, but that's like really the first time I remember noticing the score in the movie. Yeah. And I wanted
it builds the tension.
Oh, absolutely.
Sorry.
And I think that because we sort of talked about this and just like why this movie, like it's 96 minutes long. Like it's not a long film. And if there's one aspect of it that it doesn't even rub me the wrong way, but it's just like it's something that it's towards the end where I'm kind of like, okay, let's wrap this up quicker. And it's probably around the time that she goes into the basement and she's doing the thing with like the lights and the camera when she murders Fox Mask.
Oh, yes.
Like
yes.
it's a good sequence, but I just feel at that point in the movie, it's like we're wasting time. Like let's just move past this a little quicker. And I don't even think like it's still like it's very like it's a brisk pace. Like nothing is like slowing down.
Yeah.
So I was trying to think like why do I feel this way? And I think it's just because Erin at that point, like there is no threat to her at all. Like by the time we get into the climax, I kind of correlate this to Survivor, like the show or Big Brother or anything like that. When there's a player who is so obviously going to win, and you're still like 5 or 6 weeks away from the finale when they're going to be announced, and you're basically watching for the next however long to see them like the game be handed to them. And there's something about that just like it's not as exciting, at least in terms of like reality television. And here it's just sort of like, okay, I'd rather we not waste time on like, luring people away and doing that. Like we know that you're gonna come out of this on top. I mean, the final moment notwithstanding. They just like I want to like let's get to the kitchen stuff. Like I love that. I want to get to that scene quicker. So just knowing that none of these people stood a chance against her made it one of those things where just like I want to see her like be done with this shit. I want her to just be over with it and kill these people as quickly as possible.
Oh, see. Okay, see, I'm just a bitter bitch then because
Yes, you are.
I agree with you. It's absolutely, so are you in your way, but no, I agree with you. Just bitches in our own special particular ways. But I'm a very specific flavor of bitch, and this is the flavor.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. I know she's gonna make it. I wouldn't like. What's the point of there being a movie if she's not going to fucking make it to the end? Don't you make me care that much about her movie and then not let her make it to the end? But because I'm so emotionally caught up, and because she's been put through as much as she has, and because I get off on watching. It not even the fatal blows. Like the fatal blows are awesome, but I even love just like watching like the foot step through the window and think he's being smart while he's avoiding the nails that he sees.
Yeah,
that's oh god, because that's another thing. Okay, sorry, there's too much. There's another thing that I appreciate is just the fact that like here are these killers, these assassins as it were, wearing these masks, and they're treating it within the movie as if these people are really wearing masks. Everything down to the impeded vision, the kind of like the sense of like breathing your own recycled air back in your face, which has got to be exhausting, and just the fact that morale seems to be really, really low it's between them and between Dex and Crispian for hiring them and everything like that. Like it comes to a point where you feel like they almost would walk away if they weren't all so embittered. Like I actually loved my brother, so all of that. But so anyway, just watching a foot try to avoid and not see because it's out of his peripheral vision or even his line of vision because it's been compromised. So he thinks he's stepping outside of the nails, but he ends up stepping right on top of one. And it's because that's another thing that I enjoy so much about the violence in this movie, even though it's got its own brand of over the top. Ready or Not is very over the top too, but there are times in Ready or Not where blows land on people, and I'm like, how are you still walking? Whereas everything that should kill you in this movie does. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well,
like
we also have to
screwdriver
remember
in the head or whatever it is, or ice pick in the head, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to kill you, and it did.
We also have to remember that Ready or Not is radio silence, and notoriously after Scream 6, we know that
Here we
it takes more than 14 stabs to the chest to put a bitch down. So.
And
I'm just remembering when she's like climbing out of because she's been shot in the hand in Ready or Not, and she's like climbing out of the thing and puts her hand directly on the nail. And then just like
grandiose.
It's just a flesh wound, just a scratch.
You're not going to bleed out or anything. The most unrealistic thing I think that happens wound-wise in the movie is probably, I guess he's gone into shock and maybe there's some nerve damage, and that's why not Dexter. Drake doesn't feel the wound in his back anymore. But it did occur to me at one point when he was still kind of moving around in quite an agile way. I think it's right before he gets offed by Dexter, which let's talk about that in a minute. But right before then, I was thinking
Felix. Dexter is Drake. Dexter.
Drake, yeah. I'm sorry, Dexter. See, you got me saying Dexter. Okay. Felix. See, X. I can't. I'm too tired. I can't. I don't want to play anymore. I'm going. But no. Okay. Every time I said Dexter, I meant Felix. Leave me alone. Can we start over? Anyway, when Felix offs his brother Drake.
Yeah.
Before that's the moment where I just kind of think like, oh, and you're not bleeding out, like and again, I'm like kind of making it. I'm like, well, it's a movie, and I don't want him to bleed out, so okay, I'll accept it. That's the thing. I can, by sheer force of will, allow these characters to roam about, because Drake. I'm really grateful for kind of like the 180-degree turn that we get with that character, because he's someone who I can't imagine wanting to be around less from the offset in this movie. Everything pre-attack makes him a reprehensible, shallow coward in my eyes. Even socially, even when he's like going after Crispian, he's only doing it under his breath. And then won't even own it, like at the table, and everybody's telling Crispin to, like, calm down, and that fucking pisses me off as a sibling, because that's dirty pool. That's like mind game shit. And how old are you? How fucking old are you? But then the fact that like we get to see him experience the difference between him and Crispin is that the losses of his family, these people who we had varying perceptions as to like the relevance they might have in his life, we realize he really does feel the cut, as it were, when they're taken away from him, and it makes him human. And then the look in his eyes when Dexter Felix puts the first sharp object into him, the betrayal, and then the continual. Were there 6? I think
there was a lot. Like it didn't seem like there was that many, but then when it kind of like cut to him, it's just like, how are there so many? But that's okay. Can we just? I want to talk about Z and Felix here.
Oh,
because
okay.
This is like the first time I watched it, because like Erin has always been like she's the best part of the movie, but this time, like, I was just so enamored by Z in particular, and to a lesser extent Felix too, but like both of them, because I feel like that's where a lot of the comedy came from for me.
Yes.
And especially like the comedy, especially with like Felix, when in those moments like the one that we're just talking about, and he's just like why are you, it's just like he's basically killing him, and it's just like, this is your fault, like I'm mad at you because you made me kill you.
Why won't you die? Don't you know how hard this is for me?
This is very difficult for me.
You.
And it's kind of like they give it like such a great rewatchability value, because I watch this now, and every time I look at it, and just not necessarily the decisions that they make, but just sort of the way that they're kind of like goading people to do things to, fall into the traps of the killers. Like, just like, I think that we should make a run for it. Someone's got to make a run for it, knowing that the wire's out there. And like Erin's the only one that's just like, no, we got to stay calm. But the family's like, they're all like crazy. And Felix is like, Z, help me move this table, before anyone can even say anything. They're just like, go get him. And I just like, I love it, because like, more so with Z, she's not doing anything to like hide the fact that she's a shady bitch who's in on it. And I kind of, what was interesting, that in the featurette they actually said, and I didn't listen to the commentary, so they might have gone more into detail about this, but the way that they talked about Z was that she was the mastermind of everything, and she was the one that kind of convinced Felix and then Crispian to kind of go along with it, and she knew these guys and like kind of orchestrated the whole thing, and I really like that aspect of it. because this was another thing that I was getting. Like, we're talking about Scream and Ghostface, because, and there's going to be a few people who are mad at me because these are controversial characters, but I look at like Z and Felix, and maybe like even like Felix and Crispian, they're like who I would want Amber and Richie to be. They're like Amber and Richie, but make it fashion, because everything that Z was doing was just like, oh my god, like that's like I can see it, like it's very similar to like Amber in Scream 5, like a lot of the same vibe, but it just like, and I'm not like putting this on the performer, like Mikey Madison in Scream, but it's just the way that, what is her name? Is it Wendy Glenn, who plays Z?
I'll tell you, keep talking.
Is like, I just love it because she's, like I said, she's not making any, like, she's not putting on a facade at all. Like I said earlier, when we're introduced to her, she just takes a drag of her cigarette and she's just like, yeah, it's just like, I'm this sketchy bitch. She's got this like smoky eyeliner. She's just like, she just looks like Bob. She does not belong. Oh, the Uma Thurman Pulp Fiction Bob.
Pulp Fiction Bob. the Catherine Zeta-Jones bangs from Chicago.
Yeah. Like,
it is Wendy Glenn, by the way, yes.
Wendy Glenn, yeah, she's amazing. By the way, her and Sharni Vinson, who plays Erin, they are best friends in real life, and they were roommates at the time. So hopefully they're still best friends.
That's so cool.
Yeah. But what she brings to the role, because it's this very, like, her performance is very subtle. Up until like more towards the end, but she's just kind of there, and like everything she's doing is like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, she's like impressed by everything, and you can read it in her performance and everything. She's obviously not like speaking to it yet because, you know, she's not revealing her hand. And then when we do get to the moment which you quoted at the beginning, and they're on the bed, and it's just like, I want to like fuck me next to your dead mother. And it's just like, oh my god, that is so something that Amber would do. And just like that level of like excitement of like being in it. And then on the other end, you have like Felix and Crispin, and they're both kind of like pathetic. They're both like, they have that Richie energy where they're kind of like, they're trying to manipulate the group by like, oh, I think that, you know, we got to do this, or like they've got those cell phone jammers. I love that line too. It's just like, you can get them off of Amazon for like $30, and then you have Drake, who's like been shot. He's just like, Felix, you fucking lowlife, how do you know this shit? And he's like, it's like another like hilarious moment. But just like the fact that like they're kind of out of their element. They don't really know, like it's more so reliant on like the people that they've hired to do things, and then you've got Z, who's just kind of like, oh yeah, this is like really cool. Like, I'm getting off on this in a way. And then they both end up in a kitchen and are brutally murdered at the end at the hands of our final girl, who turned out to be way more primal than they could have expected.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, like, I know they can't win against Erin, but just watching her execute them the way she does, it also gave me echoes. This is the other, and I admittedly, it's not a final girl moment, but it is like a woman on the defense moment, and she does survive to the end of the movie, so she is kind of final girl-esque. But because she's not the primary focus, but she's definitely memorable. I thought of Mrs. Peltzer from Gremlins, Billy's mom, when she's in the kitchen killing the gremlins off. Zack! Okay, Christmas. That's all I'm going to say. You have to watch it, and we're going to talk about it. Anyway, there's a kitchen sequence. I think you're going to enjoy yourself. Okay. But so I got that for people who are in the know. If you know, you know. Yeah. But also, I wanted to speak to, you were talking about Z. Can I tell you my first screening that I watched this, and I had no idea what the premise was. I didn't know what to look for. I just kind of thought, I see Erin, I'm thinking, oh, what a sweet girl. I hope they like her. Be nice to her. She just wants to belong. And then I see Z walk in, and I'm just kind of like, ooh, I like that bitch.
Yeah.
Because she was kind of like the anti-Erin. She also kind of had like an outsider vibe, but it didn't really matter to her. She actually kind of like seemed to thrive on being the outsider in the room and just kind of like watched things from like a dropped glance and like those eyes, those Frankenstein eyes and, almost dead and deadpan. And I just kind of thought like, okay, see, that's the bitch I'd want to be like in the corner with. If the evening didn't have the attack and we were all just kind of like milling about the room, I'd want to be in the corner with her just talking shit about everybody else while we just kind of like share a martini, Mm-hmm. And so that was my initial vibe. I thought she was amazing. Then when at first I remember being disappointed when we found out that she was affiliated with, like the attack. And then it quickly got turned on its head, and I started enjoying her again with all of the dead mom, fuck me by your dead mom stuff and everything. It's just like, oh, she's a fucking freak. I love her.
And
I wouldn't in real life.
And then she also says, she's like, oh, you never want to do anything interesting.
Yes. Which checks out. If she's the one who came up with all of this, of course she is.
Yeah.
Because it would just be like one more adventure for her, one more story to tell.
Yeah.
When they're amongst like-minded people who have committed their own atrocities. I'm sure they're all gonna like. She probably would have wanted to hang out with any of the Ladomises who would have had her, like in some dank bar. Adam Brody. She probably would have wanted to hang out with Adam Brody because she knows that, even though he hates himself for it, he still loves telling the stories. But, yeah, but I was stunned with the impact because I think she was actually kind of my favorite thing about the movie the first time I watched it. I mean, Erin was a close second, but the more I watch it, the more I realize, I don't know, the more I realize, like, Erin is kind of remarkable and has a spirit. Granted, she spent kind of like, it sounds kind of involuntarily like a tremendous, if not a tremendous amount of time, an intense amount of time on that survivalist compound. That said, there's something about, like, her determination and her kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Her the fact that she's doesn't have a natural inclination to move into victimhood. She just seems to be very kind of task oriented and just kind of let's get me from A to B. Even when she's on her own, that's the thing that I love, is that she's really, really good at being in control of the family. I mean, with varying levels of effectiveness, because when you've got hysterical people around you, you can only be so effective. But I love the fact that she's trying to connect with people, trying to keep everybody safe as they can be. And then when she's alone, it's not like she walks her talk, basically. Like, I love seeing that she's as good alone, probably even better, because she's the only one she has to be in control of when she's alone. And even when she's doing something that arguably might be seen as really, really stupid cinematically for a final girl, I didn't think about this in the moment, but it worked for me cinematically. When she pulls out the flashlight and she starts kind of like looking every which way, and I'm thinking like Jurassic Park, turn the light off, turn the light off, turn the light off. But again, it puts me in her experience. I'm in the movie now. I'm like, no, turn the flashlight off. They're going to see you. I don't know. It all works for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have any complaints about this movie aside from, it's not even a complaint, but it is a note. It isn't something I can watch over and over and over again. I kind of like taking a couple years and watching it every so often.
When I say watch something over and
being
over
reminded
again,
of some things.
See, that's the thing. Yeah. I know a lot of people who, they'll watch Scream every month.
Right.
And I can't do that. I can't even, I inevitably end up doing it probably for like editing here and there, but like to like fully sit down and watch a movie, like, I might watch something every year if I really love it. It's just, and sometimes there's movies that I really love that I don't watch for 3 or 5 years. So it had been a while since I'd seen this. Like, I'd probably watched it during the pandemic, or whenever we did or had plans to do the thing. That might have been the last time I watched it. But like that's the thing, like time. Time, I don't understand time. So it might have been like 3 or 4 years ago, but it feels like it was recently. And that's what I mean with like over and over again, because I'll either watch a movie again and again, or I'll just watch it once and be like, I don't need to watch that again. I've gotten everything I need to get out of that movie. And this one, I've probably got everything that I needed to get out of this movie, but I still want to watch it more because I really enjoy it. And it is kind of like an anti-Scream in a way, because we're dealing with characters who, it's almost like the opposite of them making the worst decisions. Like Erin is obviously the exception to this. And then the people who are like the killers or the bad guys who are goading everyone into making the wrong decisions. But it's just funny to see people like make these choices very unironically, because they don't like know where they are or what the situation is that they're in. And I guess the one thing that I kind of like took out from this last time is just seeing all of the people who got picked off early. Where like by the time we get to the end, it's like you mentioned Drake, not Dexter, and I don't think that they did the most with him. Like I didn't get that same sense. Like not that I didn't think that he was redeemed or anything, but I felt like there was a lot more that they could have done with his character, or something that they could have done with like him and Erin in particular, that might have made his death feel like more of a loss. Because as it is, like that moment, I view it more comedically. Mostly from Felix's perspective of just when he's just like, making it all about him and how he had to do make the effort to kill him in that moment.
I see.
But I still wasn't like connect, like, to me he was still kind of like, well, he's still a douche or whatever. He was, suffering the loss of his family, but we could have got that like a little something more out of him. So it was almost like everyone that was left as we were getting down to the end, and this is probably on repeat viewings just because I know the circumstance, but it's like everyone that like would have been able to help or like would have been on Erin's side was taken out relatively early. Like it's all of the women are killed right away, because it's like a succession of like after Tariq. And is that his name, Tariq? I keep saying that, but I'm not sure.
Yes,
yeah, because first it's
is.
Amy, then it's the mom, Aubrey, then it's Kelly.
Yeah.
So really, like Z is the only one left, which I love that's kind of like the person that Erin kind of gloms to the most, because it's just like the one that she like has the most trust in, I guess, if of anything. Not that she's thinking of like the trustworthiness, but it's sort of like they kind of dismantle this like safety circle for like all these people working together, and like especially like the women, because I find that like there is this sort of this air of just like like women that don't get along with other women in this movie, or just like are very critical, because we see that, like I mentioned before, with Kelly, when she's just like, I don't like her, like her accent is very jarring, or just people just like unnecessarily being hateful towards like other women. That it's just interesting that because even like the Erin's relationship with the mother, like it just there seemed to be some sort of like weirdness there, just like, no, like you don't have to help me, where she might have been more happy to have like any of the other people help her out in the kitchen. There was just something off there,
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
The only thing is, like, I never really ascribed it to like one gender or the other, or anything like that, because I also don't recall any particularly warm moments shared. I mean, pre-attack, between any of the male members of the family either. Like, I mean, it seems to be like the warmest I think we get is probably between Crispian and Erin in the car on the way out there, and that's not even warm. That's really just kind of like, cursory, but compared to all the other dynamics, but in the relationships within the family, whether they're like triads or duos or whatever, what have you. We don't get a lot of examples of happiness really and harmony. Even between Drake and his wife and Kelly. You know,
not at all. I wouldn't say that there's happiness, but there's definitely camaraderie, and like I think that like the Crispin notwithstanding, because like the moment you mentioned before, but everyone seems to like like the dad is like sticking up for Drake. There's obviously factions of everyone that like people are respect more than the other, but I don't know. It was something that I noticed, because I always forget like the kill order in this movie, like until like once I'm in it, I'm like, okay, now I remember who's next. But it was interesting, and it was kind of like I wish that Barbara Crampton was around a little bit more. I mean, I know at that point she probably would have been insufferable, like just like the typical like, oh, like I can't go on. I need
the first character to take to their bed, reeling from like whatever has transpired thus far. Yeah, they're probably not long for this world. But I know what you mean. I would have loved for her.
Yeah, she just has a presence on screen that I don't know, like, and she's great. Like in real life, like she's so involved in the horror community. Like if you like follow any of her social medias, like she's all about it, and she looks fabulous, by the way. Like the first time I saw this, because I remember her from Reanimator, which like absolutely 1985, when I probably was in her 20s then, but like seeing her here, I think at the beginning when she like has her hair up, she definitely like she looks her age, or just like looks like a mom. But there's the scene when she comes down to the kitchen in the middle of the night to take her pills or whatever, and she's got her hair down, and I'm just like, gorgeous. Is that the mom? Like she looks 20 years younger. What happened?
I'll tell you, I even felt that way when she had her hair pulled back in the bun and everything like that. There's just such a youthful quality to her, and arguably to is it Paul the father? Rob Moran, I think, is the actor's name. Both of them, I felt like actually seemed to lean into a younger sense than I would typically anticipate in a movie like this. Like the patriarch and the matriarch. You're probably going to want people who might even look a little older than like the age where they might have had these kids. But
they seem way too young to have kids this old.
Yeah, they seem like they're coworkers, not mother and father. But that said, it's not that I don't buy the dynamic once the family is all brought together. But I even had to be reminded of that at this particular screening, just kind of going like, these are the parents, right? Oh, well, that's Barbara Crampton. These are the parents. Wow, they look so young. Am I just getting older? Is everybody going to look young? And I'm like, no, they just look gorgeous. And then, the kids come in, and I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, the movie. But can I also tell you, and I hope that's, okay, I'm not even going to entertain that this is a controversial opinion, because I would feel this way about this character regardless of who they are. They could be another neighbor. They could be anyone. But the cop at the end of the movie, when he shows up and we see the moment of justice where Erin puts that tiny knife, I think it's a paring knife, into Crispian's neck, the back of his neck, I think. Yeah. Or at least the back side, like at a diagonal. Right. Where he can just out. And we're all going, hooray! And then the cop.
Well, she stabs him in the eye as well.
And then she stabs him in the eye. And the cop fucking clips her. And I forget, I think I've forgotten that happens. I at that particular moment, that it breaks the moment. Every time I've seen this movie, which I'm very grateful for. So this time I was just kind of like, ah! As I am always. And I fucking hate that character. Just any character who walks in without context, shoots first and asks questions later. It was just like, dude. So the fact that, like, I think it's honorable that Erin tries to warn him when he's going to move through the front door booby trap, as it were. And I'm kind of grateful for that, but what I'm really grateful for is the fact that like it looks like she's too late and that he may have to die too. That made me really.
I think that was the implication by the splat title card at the end.
Yeah, you're next.
Yeah, I love how like the title card is there at the beginning, although it's just like it's on the window. But then officially it shows up at the end too. And at varying points throughout the movie. I wonder, do you think it was always called You're Next?
Sure. I mean, it's such a, like, what else would you call it with like that scrawled on the window and the wall and the, you know, the whatever. Like, I mean, it's too perfect. But I mean, do you know of something that?
Oh no, I have no idea. I didn't really look up trivia for that. I should have. I mean, I still could as we're going through this. But yeah, I mean, that always annoyed me at the end. But I'm glad that she was still alive. At least, but it's funny that we're talking about Ready or Not, because when we did the podcast for that, the question came up of like, so does, like, how does this look for Grace? Because it's like everyone's dead and she's the last one, and we're just like, what does her future look like now? And then you brought up the point of like, oh well, they have the goat pit, or like the farm, or the shed or whatever, with all the bodies in the well. So it's just like there's enough evidence to show that this family has been doing some shady shit for a while. And I mean, like, you get forensic scientists in that house, like they're going to see that like Erin killed a lot of people, so it's like it might be very difficult to get for her to have a happy ending there, because technically and I know, like, I've brought up this argument before, and people have like it's a horror movie, it's just a movie, but she killed Crispian like in cold blood. She didn't have to. I mean, it's just like, and this is the thing, I'm not saying that like I'm against it, but like but legally what she did, that would land her in prison. Like she would go to prison for murder.
Right.
And it would be like murder. I mean, I don't know like the different nuances of like how
she could plead like temporary insanity or something like that
if
like
they believe
to
her.
It because of the betrayal. But also, I mean, the now if I can Ready or Not myself or grace myself with her defense. Another thing that they could look at is like phone records and email records, and just kind of see like what transpired between Felix and Crispian and Wendy and the fox and once they get the IDs on the people who were perpetrating all of this, who were actually staging the attack and everything like that. I mean, it seems like it would all kind of fall together. I can't believe that Wendy doesn't have some kind of rap sheet. She seems like someone who's tasted crime here and there. Z.
I mean,
Wendy, I'm calling.
I guess I'm just I guess I'm just like thinking about like, because like the ending there as well. Like Erin is technically, like, if that officer died, like technically she's responsible for that death as well. I mean, like that would probably be considered manslaughter. And I know there's like a scenario where they would look and see like, okay, this was orchestrated by these family members. They did this and that, and of course like several of those things were self-defense. But I always like just the way that my brain works, and like when I watch these movies, and I'm just like, what happens next? Not that I need to see what happens, but I'm always just like, well, that's where my mind will go. And that's why like I don't come out of this movie feeling like particularly optimistic for Erin, of just like what her chances are. I mean, that's the thing. If this guy's dead, nobody. I mean,
she might have to go back to Australia for a time. They might not let her stay in the country. After the trial or something. They might reject her visa or make it conditional and have her come back like after a 3-year period in Australia or something like that. But I mean, everything that she's done, I think, is defensible, because she was just defending herself. She didn't know that her fiance was the one perpetrating all of this, and that's another sin against him, because like it made me think about like he full on is the reason. Like in Ready or Not, I thought about like that the husband. There was a chance that Grace was going to have to suffer the slings and arrows of the family, or they would have just played Yahtzee. Who knows?
Yeah.
There was at least a chance, and he didn't inform her of. This is full on, like, I'm staging an attack on my family. I don't even know if I entirely believe what Crispin says to her at the end. That
he's
wasn't
full on
supposed to
lying.
be hurt and everything like that. Yeah, and saying like there needed to be, like a reputable witness, someone who, who wasn't Z, who could like, say that all this stuff happened and you would have been there with it. And I'm just kind of like, You're treading water.
No,
my friend.
I didn't believe him at all, and that's a thing that I wanted to bring up because it's another thing that when we talk about Scream, of how you mentioned that you didn't think that Skeet Ulrich was like a great actor because of the scene, particularly in the school hallway where. It's just like
the first time I saw
that was a year ago.
Yeah.
No, but like that was a year ago. Like I think you should just get over that, like of your dead mother, sort of thing, and then like. After seeing it again, just being like, oh no, this is like, he's playing a character who's putting on a performance. And I definitely get that a lot in this movie with both, I'm going to look up the actors' names of Crispy and Felix, because there's this shift.
AJ Bowen and Nicholas Tucci. AJ
Yes.
Bowen and Nicholas Tucci are their names.
Yes.
Go on.
Where there's like this shift, and I especially see it in Nicholas Tucci, R.I.P. By the way. He in the same scenes, in like the same breath, he kind of like he jumps back and forth, and it's when he's talking to Lamb Mask, because they're having that argument over. You're supposed to be killing all these people, and like I had to like kill my brother or whatever. And he's like, maybe you didn't like your brother, but I liked mine. That's him laying dead over there. And he's just like, he's just trying to, I guess, like be empathetic in his own way. But he's just like, oh, she fucked him up real bad, hey? Like, just like wrong thing to say. But it was just so disingenuous. So that, like, you could tell when he's like being fake, because you can see it like on rewatches of just like the way that he's interacting with the family. Like, especially when he's just like, I think we should all make a run for it. Help me move this table. But then the actual moments where, like, in the kitchen later on, he's just like, it's not even hot, you dumb bitch.
That's another thing about Felix in particular, though. Like, just to get back, sorry, we keep coming back to this moment, but when he stabs Drake and everything, I think one of the other reasons why I don't necessarily laugh at that moment, aside from Drake's heartbreak, which I perceive as heartbreak and betrayal, but there's also, whether you want to call it sociopathy or attribute it to narcissism, I don't know. I can't diagnose him. I don't have that power and enough knowledge, but he's got to be at least one of them, and because his immediate concern goes to him. Don't you know how hard this is for me? And I'm like, or whatever adjective he used. I don't know if it's hard, but and I'm just like, yeah, because it's all about you fucking prick. Like it's such a selfish thing, whatever it's rooted in, as far as like a pathology. Like I just feel like it makes him no longer sympathetic at all to me. Still funny. I can still laugh at him. I think the time that I still find him the funniest though is when he and Z walk in on Erin hacking away at the Tiger Mask's head.
They don't even walk in. They were in the room. And
they're just standing there, like,
scurried. They just they moved over into the corner and let her do the thing.
Right.
And then that's when she's like, she's like, by the way, thanks for the help. And he's
right.
Just like,
you seem to have it. Like you seem to pretty much have it under control or whatever he says. Yeah. I left out.
But and I think that's where he's the funniest, when he's being disingenuous, when he's putting on those airs and like having to lie because he's so bad at it. And then you have Z, and Z is so like unapologetically Z all the time. That's why she's not. There's nothing that she's hiding. She may as well just shown up there and just like when Barbara Crampton was just like, Z, like, so nice to meet you, and she'd been like, I'm gonna murder all of you by the end of the night, and like, oh, that's great, dear, come on in, like she may as well have said that. Also, speaking of Z, Pulp Fiction and her Bob, There's the
Yes.
line, like, what if they had, instead of Z, they called her Zed? But then at the end, when Crispian's like, where is Z? And she's just like, I killed her too. But the line could have been, Zed's dead, baby. Okay, it wasn't that funny.
Oh my god. That's why I only like a chicken laying an egg.
But just in terms of like,
I think that was funny though.
Yeah, like Crispian and like the end there. Like, yeah, I don't believe for a second that he had any intention to do that, because it's like he ran away, and even like that was unplanned as well. But it's just like he left her there. Like, he didn't know what they were going to do. Like, and clearly they were coming after her to kill her throughout the movie. So it's just like it completely negates anything that he said. So he was just kind of like rambling on, and I kind of love the way that he does ramble on there, because he's just trying to like justify it. And he says something to the effect of, like, I know things are like a bit like fucked up right now, like, or just like that, like, you know, we're having this argument right now, like he's having an argument, and it's like this classic case of like, if you've ever had an argument with someone and they're just like, they're speaking and they're just digging themselves a deeper hole, and the other person just isn't saying anything, and they're just like, they continue. That's what that situation was, because Erin was not saying a single thing, and he just like, he was making it worse and worse, and just like compounding every lie on top of each other. So yeah, that's why
it's another ace. You can what?
No, that's why I could, like, nothing he said was true. Like, it was bullshit. They were she was part of the dead party plan.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's another great acting moment for me from Sharni Vinson as Erin, just because as she's standing there, I can see her resolve. I can see her seething, but I can also see her hurting, like, you know, like just all the damage she's, number one, all of the everything that she's been through so far, like that's just gotta like make you agitated as fuck. Of course you're gonna want to cry when you're either at the end of it, or at least when the end's in sight. I think she knows exactly what she's going to do. It's just like, how much longer is this prick going to keep talking? But also he's making it easier, so maybe I'll just let him keep talking. But it's also all riding over this current of pain. And, you know, like, I thought I was, there's this other layer. She's playing all of this at once, but there's other layer of, I thought this was going to be it for me. I thought this was going to be my family. You know, I thought this, you know, you offering everything you're offering to me now, like, you know, maybe we could get married. Maybe you wouldn't have to worry about your student loans anymore. Maybe, you know, this and that, you could just focus on this and that. Like that, at one point, that might have been all she, you know, music to her ears and all she would have ever wanted to hear, whether she would have accepted it or not. And now it's just, it means nothing.
I mean, it might have
utterly meaningless.
It might have, like, even like he might have survived. Like, you know, she might have just like let him live if he had just not said anything and just like kind of owned up to it. But it was almost like because he kind of like gave her this ultimatum of just like, I go to prison, like, this is what's going to happen. Like, I go to prison and you're going to be still doing your same thing. Or, you know, I have all the money now because I'm the only one left. And that, like, you know, that's us. And, you know, he neglected to bring up, like, option number 3, which was, like, you kill me. and you know, what happens there. And I kind of see that as, like, maybe the fact that he didn't even entertain that idea, that was, like, just, like, the wheel spinning in her head. It's just like, oh, you're only going to give me 2 options? Well, how about this, motherfucker? And stabs him in the neck.
Also, I mean, not in his defense, but like from his vantage point, he didn't have that much exposure to her as a killer before that night. Yeah. So,
no, he said, like, how could we have known that, like, you were really good at killing people? That's their thing. It's just like, hey, mom and dad, this is my girlfriend Erin. She's really good at killing people.
But that was another thing that I had forgotten about too, was the fact that, like, because I was just like, why would he have let her be there if he knew? And I was like, oh, he didn't know, that's why. But that's, I mean, I'm not, me personally, maybe it's also, again, like Ready or Not with Grace, aftermath. I don't want to worry about these women after the movie. I'd like to think they got through it, and they're going to, with a lot of therapy and a lot of self-care and a lot of reestablished trust with people. They'll find their way back, and they'll be free, to kind of live their lives and make their decisions, and just kind of deal. That's all I would want for them, is just for them to be able to just kind of get back to some sense of normalcy, and to be, if it gets to a point where they have to sit before a jury of their peers and all that such and such kind of thing, I'd like to imagine that the jury would behave the same way the audience has, hearing about this story and just kind of going, that prick, actually, that's a movie I would love to see. I would love to see maybe some kind of, I don't know if you would overlap it or do two separate, an anthology, two back-to-back stories, one of where the jury sits for the Ready or Not story, and then the jury sits for the Your Next story, and just see what they say around the table about these poor girls. I mean, there's a funny opportunity there. It's very niche, but I don't know, it's something I would entertain. Maybe as a Funny or Die sketch. Nothing feature length, but maybe 10, 12 minute sketch.
Yeah,
I'd watch that.
Yeah, absolutely. Bring back the characters. Yeah, but you bring up a good point. Why there was no reason for her to be there? He did not have to invite her at all, and that's the difference between this and Ready or Not, where it's just that was integral to whatever the game is. She had to be there, and yada 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 yada. He just didn't tell her about the game. Whereas here, it's just why have her there in the first place? It's just almost
maybe he just wanted to prove something to his family. See, I can date someone who's young and pretty and nice and decent and the kind of girl you wouldn't expect. But then of course, because that's why he's so agitated by the fact that Drake is poking at the fact that it's his student, makes it sound so unseemly and so kind of maybe what he didn't want them to feel the dynamic of that relationship was. They probably wanted to be impressed and for them to be happy for him, and then when Drake puts it down and he's the one being told shh,
it's giving me flashbacks to, well, I guess flash forwards, because this movie came out after, but we covered it already, the menu, because
I was just gonna say
Margot, Erin, whatever her name was. Was it Erin? Was her name Erin as well in that? Because remember, she had two names. She had two names.
She did.
One was her escort name, but the thing came up of just you invited this girl here knowing that she was going to die, and it was just so you could fill a seat, just so you could have that seat filled, and that's essentially what this guy has done too.
Yeah. And she's only credited as Margot in the menu, but
I'm pretty sure it was Erin. So Erin is just not. Yeah, Erin is not a good name. If your name is Erin, and your boyfriend invites you to some very expensive upscale event where there's going to be a dinner, maybe cancel. That's all I'm gonna say.
Just stay the fuck away.
Yeah.
Don't trust people. They'll only hurt you. I have a friend, Erin, who has endured a great deal, and I and she's a Leo, so she's fucking fierce. I could see her reeling from this in a completely different way and surviving in a completely different way, just because y'all are stupid, and just walking away. That'd be another great thing. What if they made one of these movies where the girlfriend is just too smart to care about the family, so she just spends the whole movie defending herself and using the family as human shields and things like that after they've screwed her over, so we don't think she's a completely terrible person. Nah, get that bitch,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's pushing it.
No, that's
but
fair.
I would watch that movie too.
All right.
I'd give it a shot. Why not?
Anything else you want to talk about before we move along?
I hope I never see a sequel to this movie or a requel.
No, that's the thing. Like, great movies sometimes do not require a follow-up. And I wish that, like, Hollywood could, practice that a little bit more. Like, there's some movies absolutely that do deserve, like, an anthology, or not even an anthology, but just like a franchise, or just a sequence of movies of the same story. And I've always been of the opinion, like, I love sequels and whatnot, not so much prequels, but I also love just, like, brand new IP. And there's actually one movie just came out recently, Talk to Me, and I found out that they're already, like, planning a prequel or a sequel. I'm just like, no, like, don't do that.
If it's a prequel, I'm really not interested.
Yeah.
If it's a sequel, I'll probably see it. I saw Talk to Me. Maybe we'll do a pod on that one day. But
I mean, there's a few exceptions, like obviously X to Pearl, and then, like, Maxine coming out. But this is definitely, there's just something special about movies that are just like, that's it, and you can kind of, like, look back on it, because all of these movies that do have sequels now were never intended to be. I mean, like, Scream might be a different story, because Kevin Williamson might have, I believe he was already planning the next script after that. But, John Carpenter never planned for Halloween to be more than one movie. Even like Friday the 13th, I don't know that Sean Cunningham had a long-term plan of just, like, we're going to just, like, keep doing this. A Nightmare on Elm Street.
And Wes Craven with Nightmare on Elm Street either. Yeah.
By all means, like, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there was never that's like 13 years separating the first movie from the sequel. The Exorcist, just like Carrie and the Rage. You can feel it when
you see Exorcist 2 also.
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay, we're just going
down a black hole here.
But no, I mean, again, because I'm glad that you brought up, like, X and Pearl and soon Maxine, because particularly in the case of, like, Pearl from X, like, that was largely motivated by, a time of inactivity, and then an idea, from Ty West and from my
Mia
girl.
Goth.
Thank you, Mia Goth. Just, having an idea and being inspired to, like, tell this, this prequel, as it were, story.
Sometimes...
And if it's from the filmmaker, if it's motivated by the filmmaker, I'm probably going to be more down for it than I would if it's motivated by the studio. You know what I mean?
Well, sometimes, like, inspiration just strikes, and you don't know when that's going to happen. And, like, that certainly happens for me a lot whenever I'm working on something creatively. Like, it just comes out of nowhere. And if you have an idea that's really good, then, like, go for it. And I mean, like, that's a really good point that you bring up, because most sequels are born out of studio greed rather than like creator
or profit. I understand profit is a necessity in this show business. There's the business, but it's like, why can't I wish there were just as many examples of filmmakers being given room to proliferate. Like, what story do you have in you next, as opposed to what story within this franchise do you have within you next?
That's why I appreciate people like Jordan Peele, who like it's more just like it's about him, not really the one story that he keeps telling. But as far as your next goes, like, I don't even think that it would have, like, a sequel. Like, there's the only way that you could make a sequel is to do the same fucking thing over, but with like different characters. And at that point, it's just like, who cares? It's just like the quality diminishes each time, because as it is, this story is a very self-contained story. All of the characters are kind of, they're dead. Not even kind of. The only thing you could do is, like, Erin, but, like, in a brand new situation. And I mean, I don't need to see that. I like Erin in Your Next, and keep her there. So that was a really good final point. So
with that said, let's move over to the cherry picker.
It's not like we kill people. On purpose.
So we need to pick a cherry on top, which obviously,
cards on the table.
Yeah, it's obviously it's Erin, but I mean like
Yeah.
Really like high honorable mention to Z, because especially in this last viewing, like she was my favorite part of the movie. I think like overall like long-term cherry picker value would go to Erin, but there's just something about Z, like I just love her so much. Like I would want to see Z in other movies. Like I would want to see like a Z prequel. I amend everything that I said before. We need a Z prequel.
Other bad plans that she had, like best laid plans of Z,
Yeah.
like a diary.
Yeah.
I would watch that A to Z. Ooh.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hey.
But like
Yeah.
ZEE, like they say.
Z.
Yeah. Or
Z.
yeah. ZEE. Yeah,
ZEE.
I'd be down for that. So yeah, we just went on about how like don't make fucking sequels or prequels, but give me more Z. Even just like the actress in general, like I'll need to go over her filmography just to see what she's done. But it doesn't look like she's done anything recently. So I would love to see her come back and do more in the genre, and Sharni Vinson as well. Like. She needs to do a lot more. She was actually like we talked about Survivor, or I talked about it. She was in Australian Survivor recently.
Ooh.
Yeah, she played on the
God.
show.
Do you know if she did well?
I mean, I don't want to say just in case.
Okay.
That's like a thing. But I mean, it's already passed. But she was promoting it on her Instagram, and I did watch. Like, I had to go on this website and watch a few episodes, but I was just like. Oh, I just remember she wasn't like in it a lot, at least like the first 2 episodes I watched. Like they were more so like dramatic characters that they were dealing with, so I didn't really see anything of her. The only thing I noted of her is that she was wearing blue plaid, and I'm just like, she's the killer.
She's the killer. She's the Woodsboro murderer.
Absolutely. Okay. No, I'm totally all right with that. Like, I mean, obviously it has to be her. So that's that. Last week, we asked you who deserves to die the most in Freddy versus Jason. I nominated Sheriff Williams, and you nominated...
You sure?
No, I had to remember his name because I didn't write it down here or type it out on my thing. You nominated Frizzell. And I wasn't sure if it was frizzell or frizzle.
Frizzle.
Rave guy. Across...
The less that's said, the better.
We'll see in a second here. But across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, the vote came down to 227 for Sheriff Williams versus 789 for Frizzell.
Oh my God! There's the high pitched thing that I do.
That some
Thanks,
people...
guys.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay, this is a bit of a landmine. Like.
Oh dear.
Because there's certain words that we can't like overuse here. It's things are gonna be deep. I will just bleep. But yeah. I mean. Just everyone know, like, this is the cherry picker. It's meant for fun and enjoyment, and yeah, just hold on to that. Anyway, Meme City. If you picked a protective sheriff over a literal bleep, we need to have a talk. Strife 19. The sheriff was trying to help his town as best as he could, considering he's dealing with Freddy Krueger, a full-on supernatural threat, while Glowstick Boy was trying to get his jollies on an unconscious woman, so the choice is really clear. Glowstick Boy has to go. I take umbrage with the idea that the sheriff was trying to help his town as best as he could, because, people are... Already these last 2 are just like protective sheriff. Like, did you forget, like, this guy
is all about repression. Like there's like part of this like patriarchy of Springwood, right? That's the town.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of just like these men who think that like they hold all the power and wield it, and as we've seen in these movies, and especially with Freddy Krueger, that the whole like the way to defeat him, or at least as far as like the original canon is concerned for Nancy, is that you like they mean shit to you, like they're shit. They mean nothing. Yeah. They don't have an effect on you, and everything that is like represented by this like patriarchy of like these people that include like the sheriff and the general practitioner, or whatever the fucking general practitioner. Yeah. Yes. These are all people who are like they're silencing the truth because they think that it's better to ignore trauma than to talk about it.
But also they're reacting to their own trauma, and I feel like they're worried about like as it were like letting the genie out of the bottle, because this genie kills, and it kills kids, and they're terrified. They don't know what else to do. I think they're desperate men.
Yeah.
A little column A, a little column B.
I just don't appreciate them being called protective. Glorify these people as heroes. Amethyst Frost. This is interesting. The morning this episode dropped on Patreon, Zack posted a letterboxd review that asked if Chicken Little is the worst Disney movie. This is totally off topic. If Chicken Little is the worst Disney movie, I replied that it is, but picking a worst between Dinosaur and Chicken Little represents a common dilemma I have when ranking things, whether it's worse to be boring and forgettable or more memorable and actively bad. And I'll extend that question to these cherry picker choices. Kill Frizzell. I don't even remember Sheriff Williams, nominated over many more annoying characters in this movie, while old Frizzell, they spelled it Frizzell, is an attempted bleep and should have gotten killed even worse than he was. So Frizzell's the worst, but Sheriff Williams is the most boring.
Frizzell.
I guess that's it. I mean, I tend to go for like the most boring people.
I mean, we've argued sometimes. Yeah. I mean, not amongst ourselves, I think, but maybe within ourselves. Like, I mean, I'm sure there are times where I've been more motivated to choose something because it's forgettable and boring, and at least the other thing is memorable. But it's usually memorable, and I can have some kind of fun with it. Some things are so memorable that they stunned me into like anger and agitation, whereas boring, it's like, well, at least I can take a nap. Well, like, it all depends.
Yeah, because like with the Scream movies, like everyone, and we've gone through this, but every one of my nominations was for non-characters, because even like at the worst of like the people in like any given Scream movie, I still appreciate them. There's still like a lot that I can take from, whether it's the performance or the character or the way that they're written or their role in there. Whereas like, obnoxious, like smug reporter, journalist who called out Gale for his shit, like, death to him, get him out of here. Don't like that guy. Whereas like Freddy versus Jason, like every single one of these fucking characters is deserving to die as far as I'm concerned.
Kia, he has asthma! That was another contender for my line that I was going to say last week. I just love him screaming, Kia, he has asthma! Well, she's, I don't know. It's ridiculous.
It is.
Go on.
I am Solomon. At first glance, I was like, why Frizzell, of all people? Who even is he?
Oh!
See?
Oh, okay.
Who
didn't even know who he was. That makes sense.
Was the pickings to get Axe so limited that we picked this guy from the rave? If anyone, it should be the punk that tried to have his way with, wait, who was that guy in the cornfield? Having not seen the movie in a while before making this post, I looked up real quick and saw they were the same guys, so it's validated. Axe him good.
There you go.
Is that like an official name that he's given? Like, is it in the credits? Of just like,
that's how it's what he's credited as on IMDb.
He doesn't even have a single line in the movie, and they're just like, oh,
Who do you think?
But he's a featured role.
That's so weird. I wonder if like the writers.
He might also have deleted scenes. I think he had a deleted scene where he.
Maybe.
Oh, there was when they first got to the cornfield. He came up to them and like hit on. See, I'm losing all the names now because we just spent the last 90 minutes talking about.
Well, it was either Kia or Lori or Gib.
Yeah, Kia and Lori.
Unless
he came
it was
up
one of
and
the
he tried.
gentlemen.
He tried to hit on them or something, and that was the way they established his character in the deleted scene. And so he did have a.
And they're
line.
just like,
He did
get
have a
lost,
line.
frizzell, or
Yeah, something like that.
yeah.
Or maybe it's Frizzell. Maybe it's Frizzell. I don't know.
Frizzell, like F-R-I-S-T-L-E.
Just Frizzell while you work. Anyway, go on.
Robert Holston just has this to say: "What a legendary movie." Sean Shallant, all that lies in me, all that dies in me. How can I live without you?
Oh, I love those lyrics.
Is that in the movie?
It's how. Yeah, it's how can I live without you? It's not. They open with the beginning of the end, but how can I live without you? I think is what they play over the end credits when they first kind of like glom onto the screen.
Oh yeah, I'm already gone by that point. Sorry, I didn't get the reference.
Yeah, no, I love that song. Oh, so good.
Giboni, a man trying to protect his town and the people in it versus literally one of the worst people in both franchises combined.
Oh,
I'm sure we could find worse people. Well, then protect his fucking town. I swear to God.
Can I tell you?
What?
Just little non sequitur.
Sure.
There was I didn't know who was gonna get first choice here, and if you got first choice, I thought, well, if he chooses Frizzell, I have to choose. I had to have an alternate.
I don't even know. I didn't even know the guy's name. I forgot about him.
No, so the point is, I'm not. No, this isn't about you making your choice. I thought if you choose that, then I need to have a backup. So I thought, who's my backup? And watching the movie that particular time, the one who got to me the most and gave me the ick. Yeah. Almost as much as he did was Dr. Campbell, the dad, just because I so didn't get a father-daughter chemistry between Monica Keena and that whoever that actor is who played her dad. Yeah. It seemed like I bet Ronnie Wu didn't get a chemistry audition for the two of them to see do they read as father and daughter, because they really don't to me. So then when he finally in the nightmare as Freddy kisses her, it just kind of felt like an extension of a perversion that they already laid the groundwork for. Like, stop touching her, in the first scene. Just in the first scene. He's drugging her and touching her. I don't like it.
I mean, I had no idea. Like, we were just talking through it before I even came to a decision, because I'm just like, I hate everyone in this movie. Like I said. Yeah, right? At one point, I was like, was the character's name Blake? It wasn't like, because there's the Trey, who's like the obvious choice. Trey was like the first one killed, who was Gibbs' boyfriend. I'm just like, yeah, that's pretty obvious though, but like, at least I remember him. Whereas like like the Blake was like because he was the one that just like, my best friend just died, like lay the fuck
killed, Dad.
Yeah, lay the fuck off. Like, there's just something about him that I'm like, he was like my second choice. Because I hated the way that he like kind of sidled up to that. He had the flask and he was like man spread and he's like, so this is a pretty neat house, like great feng shui. But I mean, like Kia was an option. Like there was just too many. Like they're all terrible. I just picked the one that was
he was Blake.
Yeah, I just picked the one that was like the least effective at what they were doing. So.
You made a decision and
and now I'm getting raked over the coals for it.
They're just welcome to my world after a happy death day.
Tree's mom, yeah.
It was like, oh my God, Tree's mom. How could you? I can't. But
I'm still baffled.
I liked. No, I like that there was a lot of comments that were just like, I can't wait to hear Eddie's argument as to why Tree's mom, of all people in that movie, is the one who deserves to die.
And if we ever do the sequel, just like how that conversation's gonna go, since she's actually featured in that movie.
Yeah, she is, but well, if there's no footage of her pushing a face into a cake, I might give her a reprieve.
Let's get through
this.
Let's go. Tim Big, Frizzell, because he wasn't stopped by Jason, he'd have grown up to be a staff member at Camp Arawak.
CL12356 frizzell, just based off his hair alone. Melissa Roskowski, sorry, butchered that. Is this a serious question? He literally was assaulting her. Like, are you new? Have you like watched or listened to the Cherry Picker? Every Cherry Picker is a serious question. Oh, here we go. Bluebox87 says everyone in that cornfield. All of them. Sean Princick, it's hard to have a reaction this week. When I think of this movie, neither of these characters come to mind. As far as I'm concerned, the biggest scumbag is the boyfriend at the beginning. He does get the coolest death in the movie, so maybe that balances things out. Ultimately, I pick Frizzell because he was one of those dumb kids in the cornfield. That cornfield massacre is bizarrely like the coolest scene in the movie.
Agreed. Yeah.
It peaked at the cornfield. Kyle's comment. Well, one guy is a genuinely scared man.
This is like the hardest thing to expect Zack to do, is like read the comments against his candidate.
It's just like, no. Like, I get that, like, why? Because I would choose Frizzell too. But to be like, oh, this guy was like a good person. He was a good Samaritan. He was a public service worker. He did a great job. He didn't try to stifle the investigation into Jason Voorhees at all. You know, he had everyone's best interest at heart. Shut the fuck up, everyone.
You take it so personally. It is hilarious.
Well, one guy is a genuinely scared man who is trying to protect his town by doing the only thing he knows that worked, keeping Freddy out of mind. The other guy is the answer is obvious. Yeah. Have you not seen these movies before? How many times has that worked? Silent Saturn. Have to go with Frizzell, as garbage as a person can be. Gotta say, I really hate how him and Gib get killed at the same time. He deserved his own far more gruesome death. It's kind of like they're equally being punished by Jason, as if Gib is as much to blame as Frizzell for being drunk or something. Maybe I read too much into it, but I didn't like it.
No, I think that's a tremendous point. I never thought about it like that.
I don't think that the writers or filmmakers were thinking much about any of that at all. They probably just said like, wouldn't this be a cool kill? And I mean, like, it's, and also the thing is, like, it's not out of, like, because this is a classic Jason kill. It's the part 2 kill. And I think that they were just thinking about that, and they were just like, how can we make this better? And they're just like, let's like...
And also, Jason isn't doing it with the intention of, like, preventing an assault from happening or anything like that. Like, that's clear. He's got an indifference to them, the same indifference he has, like, to any of his other victims. Is just like, you're going to die. That's it. That's just the end of it.
Yeah.
But just from a cinematic standpoint, if it strikes you in that particular way, I think that's really interesting. It's a particular vantage point I've never taken on that kill, and it'll stay with me. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, I mean, they didn't have to even have the assault in there at all. She could have just, like, passed out in a cornfield, and Jason could have just come over and been like, he was picking up trash on the side of a highway.
Boring.
But no, but it still would have been in the, like, because she was in the nightmare sequence, though.
I know, but I don't know. The fact that there's, like evil being, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Evil transpiring in, like, parallel universes, you know, like in Freddy's End and Jason's, and who's going to be the one to take her out or take them out, like, first or whatever. I don't know. I think it's interesting. I like the corn sequence, except for the reason you pick on me is because you really don't like yourself, or whatever the fuck Linderman says to Kia. It's so fucking stupid. I hate it every single time I see it. But if I heard a kid in Blockbuster disparaging it, I'd take offense. So there you go. Figure that one out. Go, Zack.
I don't even know what to say. The sheriff, Ricardo Trevel.
Wow. Okay.
I said that with a lot of disdain. Ricardo Trevel. Yes. The sheriff shouldn't even be on the list. This should be a contest between Frizzell and Trey. I mean, Ricardo, would you like to take over? I'm salty today.
Oh my god.
Trey, Gibbs' boyfriend. Gibbs' boyfriend was a stereotypical controlling and abusive boyfriend, and he definitely is one of the characters who deserve to die the most. I love that there's like a specific criteria that comes in, like it's just like, no, this is Freddy versus Jason, and it has to be, this is what we're judging this whole thing on. Sucked.
It's the nature of the arguments that's what's pissing you off.
Sucked. No, I just don't want people to be like, why did you pick that?
Welcome to my world.
Bitch.
Welcome to my world, bitch.
Sucked. Frizzell. Not only does he look like Creepazoid Jared Leto. Is it Leto or Leto? I always fucking ask.
Leto is what I've heard of late. It's Leto.
Not only does he look like Creepazoid Jared Leto in Fight Club. Power Man 5000 and Billy Idol all had a baby. Wow. But he's also the worst person in the movie for obvious reasons. I only wish that Jason sliced him up so bad that his blood mixed with his bleached hair and turned it red. Because would have been fun. Either way, he got what he deserved. Mr.
Graphic.
Check Yourself, of course, the Frizzell. Georgie, I would have nominated Laurie's dad. But the sheriff is definitely a pick. His character... his character just pissed me off, even though he's trying to hush for the kids. But that white privileged voice just gets to me. Haha.
Okay.
All right. I am so glad that we have washed our hands of Freddy versus Jason, because I hate this movie so much.
Oh my god,
I hate talking about it, I hate watching it, and I hate arguing. Edward.
Okay, this is tough because I have, again, like, and I didn't even have to like reason it out. I do have two that come to mind, and I have to choose between them. I was hoping you would actually be the victor, so you could conceivably choose one, and then I would just choose the other. But okay, let me think. Which one do I prioritize here as far as like the evils that are committed? You know what? I'm probably gonna lose. But I'm gonna choose Dexter Felix. Just Felix. I'm gonna choose Felix.
Okay.
Just because the fact that he's in the trenches trying to wipe his family out as opposed to adjacent to, the premises, it's not honorable to me. I don't find it a boon to his character or anything like that. The fact that he's even committing some of the heinous acts himself or standing idly by while they're being committed and blaming people, going, you're going to do that right in front of me? You're going to kill my dad right in front of me? It's like, they're doing what you want and you're still finding a way to complain about it. You're stabbing your own brother who, as far as I perceive, has had some kind of like moral catharsis as to, or not even moral, but just like catharsis as far as his priorities in life. Like his family really matters to him and you really matter to him, and he's losing people left and right and reeling from it, and now he also has to deal with that on top of it, the fact that you've stabbed him, you're continuing to stab him, and you're berating him for and making it about you. Like, what a dick. What a fucking piece of shit dick. And also the fact that like none of this within the canon, as far as like the filmmaker's commentary is concerned, the fact that like none of this came from him, he didn't even have the idea. Like he's just a bitch being a bitch dying a bitch, deserves to die over and over again like a bitch. So take that, bitch. Anyway, that's my case.
Okay, fair enough.
What about you,
Fair
Zach?
enough. I honestly, I wouldn't have known who to pick if you had chosen this one. So I'm glad you didn't. But I'm gonna say Crispian, or Crispin, because at least with Felix, like, I enjoy his presence. Like, I enjoy watching him. I agree with everything that you say. But Crispian, I mean, he at least, like, Felix at least was in the trenches, or, by them. Crispian just took off. He just got the hell out of Dodge because he couldn't handle the blood or whatever it is. Add to that the fact that he invited Erin to this murder party, knowing full well that she was going to die because, in his own words, we didn't know that you'd be really good at killing people.
Right.
And then just the whole, like, his whole, which is a kind of a point for both of them, but just like their rationalization of just like throwing money at problems to fix them. And just the constant lies that, it has to be him. Because I think that just like his betrayal was just a little bit more of a betrayal, since like we are in Erin's perspective. Whereas Felix, like, I feel like with Felix, I might not be able to trust him as far as I can throw him, but I can always trust Felix to be Felix.
All right. I mean, like I said, I headlined this with I'm probably going to lose, and I don't really care because this is all about voting your conscience and voting your heart, and that's exactly what I'm doing. So, because I think the disdain I have for Felix, I don't enjoy him to the extent that you do. And I'm not saying, I understand from the vantage point you're coming from, the fact that like you're not saying anything that he does is acceptable, but I think you just enjoy his time on screen a little bit more than I do, because I get bogged down in the tragedy of it. There's a lot of loss that I experience when I see him, and it pisses me off. It makes me want to see him die again.
I thought you were going to nominate the police officer.
Yeah, I thought so too.
But then I feel like you were dissuaded because then everyone would have been like, you were gonna pick the one person who was like trying to protect them.
I mean, again, I don't call shooting first, asking questions later protection. Like, you don't know who he is, you don't know who she is, so you're gonna start firing. But no, but he's not in the movie enough. I spend a lot more time with Felix, and I would have chosen Crispin over the cop, honestly, because again, I spend a lot more time with him, and there's a lot more premeditated horribleness that goes on as opposed to a son of a bitch who makes a mistake.
It's the battle of the middle brothers, assuming that they're both the middles. So vote your heart, vote your conscience. You can vote on Instagram at the Cherry Picker Pod. You can vote on YouTube. Give us a subscribe as well, the Cherry Picker. If you're new to the Cherry Picker and you are watching us on YouTube, you can listen to these podcasts as well. The RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. And if you are listening to us, you can also watch us on YouTube at the same Cherry Picker thing that I just said. Wow, what was that? You can also...
We're getting tired.
You can also... I'm not tired. I just don't know where I'm going ever. You can also vote on Patreon if you're supporting over there. So please do that.
Yes.
We are taking a week off next week for our regular scheduled program, but we will have a Cherry Picker After Dark episode. So if you are a supporter on Patreon at the Freddy Krueger tier, you will have access to that. And Edward, what are we doing?
Is it the one where we talk about the heavies that are...
You're already ruining it. We're
Disney villains.
We're delving into the topic of the Disney villains.
Some very specific ones.
Yes. Very well. I mean, because we can't talk about all of them, or else we'll be there forever. So we've got a select bunch, 16, I believe in total, that we're going to talk about, and just how they correlate to the horror genre, and they are sort of a gateway into horror. At least they were for me. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So if you are interested and you do want to support us, head over there. And after that, we will be back the following week in September. And I did actually not tell you what we were going to do, and I actually don't know what we're going to do offhand.
Okay.
So, but I can
tuned.
tell you. I can tell you right now. We're doing Child's Play 3.
Ooh, I was just thinking about that movie.
Yeah.
Okay, fun.
Child's Play 3, September 5th, we will be back. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And see ya.